Welcome to the show. I'm Mike.
I'm Maggie.
And this is Friends on Fire.
Hey, and we are on a mission to get friends to talk about money.
So what have you been up to lately, Maggie?
I really hurt my shoulder or my arm. I'm not sure how to describe it. And my theory for how I hurt it's like pretty bougie.
I would like to hear this story.
For Valentine's Day, I think this year or maybe last year, my husband bought me a weighted blanket.
Is this going to be an appropriate story for the show?
No, totally appropriate. Okay. Very clean. Do you know what a weighted blanket is, though?
Yeah, I guess.
It's for like stress or anxiety. There's all these studies that it, like makes you more happy or less stressful or something.
Studies by who?
I'm not sure. The companies that created the weighted
sounds
blankets.
about right.
Anyways, you know how like your partner or spouse like steals your sheets in the middle of the night and you wake up and you're like, where'd all the sheets go?
Yeah.
Well, that happened one night and the weighted blanket is heavy and it's kind of over both of us and it's on top of our comforter and we love it. And I just sort of, very roughly jerked it to try to get more of it. And Greg was like on top of it and it was hard to get. And so I really think I like pulled my shoulder trying to pull this weighted blanket back onto me.
How much did this weighted blanket cost? I'm
not sure. It was a present from Greg.
Was it in like the hundreds?
Oh, no. I think I'm not sure. I should ask him. It was maybe 100, 150 tops. Cause I tried to buy some for the kids. They really wanted one. And they were a little pricey and I was like, I don't think I can buy 3 of these.
So you're fairly athletic and you injured yourself pulling a $100 weighted blanket in the middle of the night.
I think so. Yeah. So the moral of the story is it was not my fault though. Had Greg not stolen the blankets, my shoulder would feel better right now.
I think the moral of the story is that studies prepared by weighted blanket companies are not valid.
Okay. Well, we'll put a link in the show notes to weighted blankets because there's actually a lot of very promising research in this space right now, Mike.
We'll come back to that.
We'll move on though.
All right. So I have some exciting news. We have our first sponsor.
Yeah?
This show is brought to you by the Flowbee. Have you given up on trying to impress people, including your spouse? Well, try the Flowbee.
I love that we don't actually have a sponsor. We're just trying to talk about Flowbee enough that maybe they'll sponsor us.
So I did do some research and I went to their website and tried to
they seem like they're still in business.
I don't think they are. Have you been to the Flowbee website? It's straight out of
scanned it on my phone.
Late 90s.
Well, don't insult them or they're not going to sponsor us. What if that is their website?
No, there's no way. I don't think the technology exists to create as basic of a website as the Flowbee has right now.
Yeah, I did see a lot of them on eBay, which made me think there's like a lot of aftermarket Flowbees or something.
There is one account called Flowbee Direct on eBay, which may be the company.
Okay, let's keep moving. And you'll rarely hear me say that, by the way. I'm going to get Mike back on track.
All right. So the purpose of today's episode, we want to talk about our 2020 goals because we just entered the new year. Very exciting.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you. How long can you wait before it's no longer appropriate to say Happy New Year?
My general rule is if I've not seen you yet in the new year, like there'll be people at work where it'll be like the 3rd week of January or early February and I haven't seen them yet. So when I see them, I will say Happy New Year. But it gets complicated because I can't remember if I've seen you before.
Yeah, mine's like, my rule is about 2 days.
Oh, okay. My rule is usually like 3 to 4 weeks. Okay, we're talking about 2020 goals. So
we're going to get into our specific goals and I'm curious to hear what yours are. But I think the important thing that we should focus on first is why goals are important and then how you can set effective goals, because this ties very, very much into the FIRE movement and financial independence and just money in general. Like money is something that you can measure and you can monitor your improvement. And so having very clear and effective goals is critical to the success.
Totally agree, Mike. I think one of the things that we've been talking about from the beginning is just the idea that we can make so much more progress when we have these conversations with each other about money. And I think goals falls into a similar category, that it is much harder to actually make progress against many financial areas of your life if you don't actually set specific goals. You'll just sort of, constantly try to do better, but you don't really have anything specific you're aiming for. It's a lot harder to do better in that scenario.
Yeah, that's a great point. And for everybody listening who has worked for any sort of business that has performance metrics or goals, this should make a lot of sense. Like if you run yourself like a business and you create what your targets are, your performance targets, and then you start breaking those down into actionable areas, it becomes very clear what you need to do in order to achieve those goals. And there's this one saying I really like. So I spent 2 hours trying to credit this quote for my book, and I couldn't even find the right quote, which makes me think that it's like an amalgamation of a bunch of different things.
What gets measured gets done?
Yes, that's one version of it. What gets measured gets improved. I think a bunch of different people have said it over time, so there's no like
I see that with a lot of quotes that I look for. There'll be like 5 different people credited for saying something.
Yeah. So I didn't end up using it in the book, but
point is we should probably take credit for it. So
I think if we come up with a unique twist on it, we can take credit for it. So what gets measured gets
better. Okay, you let that ruminate for a while.
All right. The point is, if you are able to measure something, you can improve it. And we talked about this in early episodes with tracking your spending. If you know what you're spending on, then it gives you the opportunity to go dig into things and find efficiencies. And so the first thing you have to do with goal setting is make sure that what you are setting as your goal can be measured along the way.
Yeah. And you've heard me talk about this a couple times probably on this podcast already, but I very admittedly have been fairly frugal and pretty good with my money over the past 2 decades. But I was not super thoughtful in like setting very tangible and thoughtful goals. I was just like, I'm going to try to do good. And I would enter, every year thinking that. And I just didn't set goals. And you could see, you guys probably can't see the specifics, but when Mike and I kind of compare different things and talk about our returns over the years, you can see where Mike has had, much stronger results just in his savings rate. He's had much stronger performance than I have because he's been much more kind of methodical and disciplined about setting goals. And so anyways, I just think that's a good example. I'm a good poster child for why setting goals is actually important, because I'd be doing so much better had I actually set goals.
And we're going to change that in 2020. We're going to set some very specific goals for you.
Yeah, I'm excited. I also, for those who have ever done calorie tracking, have you ever done calorie tracking?
No, it seems like just a really time-consuming task.
Yeah, but so is tracking your money, honestly. It's not super time-consuming, but like it takes a little bit of extra effort.
That's true.
And you kind of get into the habit. But I have done calorie tracking apps every now and then, like off and on, when I feel like I'm getting a little less healthy than I would like or whatever. And they're super helpful because all of a sudden you realize like, oh, I had no idea that particular thing had that many calories. I would not have chosen to eat it had I realized that, or I would not eat it. I would not eat it so often. Like my husband and I would eat almost like an entire dark chocolate bar every night. And we were like, well, dark chocolate's good for us. But we didn't realize like the volume of like the caloric intake just from that and the amount of saturated fat and some other things. So anyways, I think just the idea that anything you track, it's so much easier to get better when you realize how things are moving along in real time throughout the month. And so I think the same theory goes throughout the entire year. If you're actually consistently tracking things, you're going to see much better results from it. Like we said, what gets measured gets better.
And I think we're going to put that on some t-shirts and make that some of our first merch. What do you think?
Yeah, people love wearing merchandise with quotes about what gets measured.
All right. So the way that I like to set goals and what I learned, I think maybe in business school, was the framework of SMART goals, which I thought I remembered what they stood for. And then when I Googled it, I realized they were totally different.
Yeah, I thought the A was something different.
So SMART equals specific, measurable, assignable, realistic, and time related. I don't know what I was thinking. I think I got the gist of SMART goals 15 years ago.
I knew the specific and measurable. I thought it was actionable.
Yeah, I thought it was actionable.
Similar to assignable. This might be like quotes. I think there might be some different.
There's a bunch of different SMARTs.
Different ways to play out the acronym SMART.
So the point is, you need to be thoughtful about how you set goals in such a way that you can track, measure, improve, and then eventually achieve them.
How do you get aligned with your spouse or partner or whoever you might be sharing your finances with on your goals?
I think that is a critical component of this. And this is where I've kind of made some mistakes in the past, because I do a ton of thinking about this. I'm working on very specific goals, and I just assume that my wife is like on that journey with me. And then I'll tell her something and she'd be like, why are we doing that? That sounds like a terrible idea.
I want to hear what some of those goals have been that she says, why are we doing that on?
It's really when I like surprise her with something and be like, well, this year we're going to be doing this. And she'd be like, why didn't you ever tell me about that? That sounds like a terrible idea.
A good tip would be to discuss those goals with your partner, spouse, whoever you're financially bound to.
Which I did this year.
That's good. Hey, making progress.
Getting your partner on board with your goals is a pretty important, maybe the most important part of achieving your goals, because you two are working together. You probably have combined finances. And so making sure your goals are aligned and then how you're going to achieve those goals might be the only way that you can achieve them. And so...
Can I jump in?
Sure.
I don't know why I ask. You know I'm going to. But two quick things on that. One, not everyone does have joint finances. I know some people may have kind of different setups. And we're actually going to do a show in the future around kind of joint finances versus separate and kind of how different couples may be handling things. But the other thing I would say is, though I think it is critical to get your partner on board and everything will be better if they are, I will also challenge people to say, don't use that as an excuse. Because I often will hear people say like, oh, I'm never going to be able to, control what so-and-so spends or, change this about, someone. But I do think there are things like with anything of, start with yourself, manage what you can control. Don't be overly pushy because it's not necessarily going to make them want to get on board when they feel sort of, forced or guilted or whatever along the way. But I think just the idea of like, don't use that as an excuse is an important point to say that you can still start with yourself, set a strong example, and hopefully they'll see what you're doing and it will, become so attractive that they want to be doing the same thing.
Yeah, that's a great point. And it kind of relates back to lifestyle inflation. So if you and your partner have very different lifestyle tastes and expectations, then even if you are able to independently achieve your financial goals, you're going to be in a place where you have built up very different lives. So what makes you happy, what you want to spend money on. And so after this entire FIRE journey, maybe you've been a very strong earner and you've been able to achieve these goals and you can stop working. But you are both have now developed very different interests and very different ways of spending your money. And that's not a great way to be either. So if you are having trouble getting on the same page with your partner, like use goal setting as an opportunity to set expectations for your life, not just in the short term of trying to achieve a goal.
Yeah, I think it's a great point. We'll also do a whole show in the future focused specifically on ideas and tactics to get your partner aligned if they may not be, and if you're kind of having some differences in opinion in this area.
The other thing that I think a lot of people skip when it comes to goal setting that I find to be the most fun is to set goals with your friends.
It's so much fun to set goals with your friends. I was just thinking the same thing.
Because
I was like, man, I want to have some fun this weekend. I'm going to go set some goals with my friends.
Well, you say that now, but you're also a little competitive. And so if there are some goals and there's some accountability between a group of friends, it also helps you achieve it. It can be fun.
Yeah, I know. I'm only half mocking you.
So we're going to set some friend goals today.
Yeah, I'm excited.
All right, good.
Friends on fire, goal setting. Yay.
Are we going to make that into a jingle?
Yeah. Put some music behind it.
All right. So should we jump into what our 2020 goals are?
You already know your goals, right?
Yes.
Have you known them have you pre-planned out your goals for like multiple years in advance? Do you have like a 10-year plan?
I sort of have pretty similar goals because I do the same ones every year and then try to mix it up with some new ones. So I have two primary financial goals that I revisit every single year. And they are a spending reduction and then a net worth growth. The most important thing, and we're going to spend a bunch of episodes talking about this, is net worth. And in my book, I have multiple chapters about net worth. It is like the most important tool that you can use when working towards financial independence.
Around tracking it.
Yeah. So net worth, for people who don't know, is the value of all your assets less all your liabilities. So the value of your home, less your mortgage, the value of your retirement accounts and your bank accounts and your car and all that sort of stuff. So your net worth, your total number. And your goal, financially speaking, is to grow that total number. It doesn't really matter if you're growing it in retirement accounts or growing it in cash or growing it in real estate. As long as you are growing that number, you're making progress. Now, that's overly simplified, but the point is, if you're focused on just growing your total worth, you're on the right track. So I try to hit a specific number that I make pretty aggressive every year. And this year, I'm going to try for 15%.
Is that different than last year for you?
It was also 15%.
Okay.
But here's the thing. Having the same percentage year over year also gets a little more challenging because as a dollar amount, it's going
much
up
larger,
because the net worth, the denominator is increasing. So 15% net worth growth. That's my first goal.
Like it.
For annual spending, this one's big. I want to reduce it by 20%.
I have a small glimpse into your annual spending, Mike, and I have no idea how you can reduce it by 20%. I already am impressed by the current level of annual spending that your family of 4 is at. I don't know if we've said it or if you want to say it, but I'm shocked that you can reduce it by 20%. How will you do that?
By a few things. Not doing any home improvement projects. So...
Oh, well, you just bought a roof. So that's a bit,
I
you
just
just like,
replaced
this is like year over year comps, right? Like your comps for this year.
Well, yes, but every year I do something.
Right. Okay.
And so last year, the year before, I also had, some big, I
big
replaced
stuff.
my floors. So there's always something to do with the house.
20% aggressive. I'm impressed. That's a very aggressive goal for somebody who already, to me, has pretty streamlined expenses already. So I'm excited to see how you do and what you're able to do to cut that out.
And at a high level, it's really going to be finding efficiencies in everything. So going back to the alignment with your partner. So my wife and I sat down, we looked at our annual spending by month, by category, and went line by line and found areas that we were in agreement that we could cut some expenses.
Okay, like throw out one example in addition to home improvement.
Food. So we don't really go out for food very much, but it's certainly an area where it's not, we kind of go out with friends during the workday when we're a little bit lazy and we don't want to prepare lunch. And it's nice, but we don't necessarily need to do it. Or we go to a nicer place than we normally would. And so if we're going out once a week with work friends and spending $25 on a lunch, maybe bring that down to 15, get like a more reasonable meal. Our groceries, we also want to do like meal planning because we kind of go and we buy a lot of the same stuff, but we buy things that, look interesting. And if we're a little more structured in our planning, we could bring that number down. Rich
and Regular recently put out an ebook called Eat Better on a Budget or Eating Better on a Budget.
Really?
We'll put a link. I bought it and I've only started reading it. I need to read more of it. But Mr. Rich and Regular or Mr. R&R is a former chef. And so he's got like a, culinary background. And so I'm excited to read it more, but I think it might give you some good ideas. We'll put a link in the show notes.
And that's actually a perfect segue into my third goal of read more books.
Nice.
Thank you,
Maggie. Ebook
Maggie.
count?
Yeah, it counts.
Yeah, it's pretty
sure.
long, so.
I mean, all my books are ebooks now. I don't really buy them on paper. I get them from the library.
Me too.
So one of my non-financial goals is to read 10 books, which if you would have asked me like 15 years ago, I'd be like, I read 30 books a year. But I found that I get so distracted during the day. It's really hard for me to stay focused on a book, but I really enjoy it. And there's a lot I want to learn. There's a lot of material out there that I have like lying around, like waiting to be consumed. And I just can't get through it.
No,
so
it's a good goal.
10 books.
We'll have to pick some to read together because I also have a goal to read books, but my goal is actually lower this year because I need more time for this podcast and some other things.
And how many books do you want to read?
11, just to one up you.
Oh.
Well, like this year, I probably read 20 or 30 books, but I'm just being realistic that related to this blog and this podcast, I'm actually going to lower my reading because I need to put my time towards some other things. This is not about my goals. We're still focused on your goals, but I'll find a way to bring it back to my goals.
That's a good example of the R in SMART. It's realistic.
Yeah, exactly.
So what books are we going to read together?
I don't know. I already read Playing with Fire. I know you're going to read that soon.
I will read that one.
He asked to borrow it, and I was like, oh, I don't own it because I got it from the library because I don't buy books. I don't know. We'll have to come up with our books and we'll share them. So
let's pick one book that's of a shared interest, and then one book
like a fiction or nonfiction book?
It can be either one.
Okay.
But if we're going to share 3 books of this 10 and 11 respective goal, one will be shared, one will be definitely of my interest that you'll have to suffer through.
We each get to
Right.
make the other person read a book. Okay.
Right. And then you get to pick one, which
Yeah.
may or may not be of interest to me.
This could be, I'm going to pick a gem of a book for you to have to read. This could be the beginning of like the Friends on Fire book club.
I love it.
You never know. We'll see.
We'll do book reviews as episodes. This is perfect.
Let's do it. Okay.
This is going to be big, Maggie.
Okay. I like it. Okay. 10 books. Let's keep going. What else? What
All
are
right.
your goals?
So another goal, I want to be a better vegan. So
Love that goal.
I know you do. So
Like makes my heart happy to hear that.
I kind of adopted veganism like 4 or 5 years ago. So we don't eat meat. We don't eat eggs. We don't have milk in the house. We have 1 bag of shredded cheese a week. But when I'm at work, I'm definitely not vegan. And you've seen me consume free meals at work. It's like if
You're
there's
like, whatever it is, I'll eat it.
right. If there's like meat and vegetables, I just load on a
It's
plate
like a
of
ham
meat.
sandwich that's been
Yeah.
sitting out for 2 days. You're like, I'll take it. Is that free?
It's like you would think that I don't actually eat at home, that I only eat at work. So be a better vegan. I think you can help me with that. Just be more mindful of it and get more excited about it. Like I definitely feel like I'm suffering through it at times, and I don't.
Oh, really?
I shouldn't be that way.
I don't feel like I'm suffering at all.
I know, and that's why I need your
Yeah,
help on
okay.
it.
Well, next time I see you try to like eat a free ham sandwich at work, I'll slap it out of your mouth. I'll be like, I'll slam it out of your mouth while you're trying to eat it.
That would be really funny.
People at work will be like, what is, like, Maggie's really lost it.
Yeah, she's really into veganism. And then the last one is I want to get more into minimalism. I know you're going to like
Makes
this
me
one,
so
and I
happy.
also need your help on this one because I like minimalism from like a cost savings perspective, and it kind of aspire to the idea of minimalism, but I haven't yet gone on that journey. Maybe you can come over and do some consulting at my house.
Yeah, we'll do a walkthrough. We should actually record that. I think it would be a really funny episode.
That would be funny.
For me to walk through your house and give commentary on all the things I think you don't need, could sell, could donate, etc., and or how you ever acquired this thing in the first place.
Done.
I've been to part of your house and it didn't look like you have that much stuff.
We don't.
Okay.
But it's really just because I don't like to spend money.
Okay.
All right.
It doesn't really matter where it comes from. It's a good goal.
Yeah, I'm partway there. All right, so let's move on to your goals. What are yours?
So my goals are, I copied your 15% net worth goal. And honestly, I hadn't really thought about, I just started consistently tracking my net worth. And when I saw that goal of 15% of yours, I was like, could I get to 15%? I kind of did some rough math and I was like, yeah, I think I could. So my second goal is related to the 15% net worth goal and will help me get there. But this year I took a big plunge and Mike helped me with it, helped to convince me that it was the right thing to do. We have a DCP program at work, which stands for Deferred Compensation. And it's basically an additional program on top of a 401k that allows you to, it's really a tax strategy or tax benefit. It allows you to defer your compensation to a future point in time. There's a couple different selections that you can make in terms of when that point in time is, which we can talk about at a future time. But you can defer up to 75% of your salary if you want to. And so this year, I decided to defer 75% of my salary, which means, and you can't change it throughout the year. So like it was a big leap on my part. You can't change it until next year. And so in 2020, 75% of my paycheck will be taken out upfront, pre-tax, put into this fund, which is essentially a retirement fund. And I cannot get to it until a point in time, many, many years ahead.
Which is an awesome...
It's an amazing benefit.
It's an amazing benefit, and I'm glad you did it. I'm glad you jumped in because deferred compensation plans are available at most large companies, and majority of people have no idea it's there, and when they know it's there, they don't participate.
But they don't really understand it.
They don't understand
I even
it.
had a financial planner last year, and her recommendation in the end was to only do the 2%. Which is one of many reasons why we're no longer working together.
Yeah, that's not good advice.
It's not great advice.
So the goal for you is to live off 25% of your salary.
My goal is I'm doing it. I don't have a choice now. So like the 75% is locked and set. I cannot change it for the entire year. My goal, thank you for bringing me back to the point, is to only live off the other 25%. Like I could defer 75%, but just live off my savings and other things. But I actually want to only live off 25% of my salary. And obviously Greg's, too. And so I think it's possible. And that's one of my goals. One of my other goals is to spend more quality and focused time with my kids and husband, like truly put my phone away, doing like fun, wholesome activities. Like my kids are really into Uno and Foursquare right now. And I just find myself constantly thinking about everything else I need to be doing and not truly present in the moment. And I want to be more present in the moment with the kids.
So how is that one smart, and how are you going to measure yourself against it?
This sounds a little lame and sad that I actually need to do this, but the way that I anticipate measuring myself against this is I'm literally going to say like twice a week, a weekend or something, and maybe, on weekdays too, I'm going to make sure I spend at least 30 focused minutes with my phone, totally put away, off, whatever, engaging in something they want to do, not me trying to get them to fold their laundry or do something. And I know that sounds terrible to some people, and I might be judged for oh, you have to set a goal to hang out with your kids for 30 minutes. I'm just constantly distracted by things and just something I need to do, cleaning. It's not like I'm playing a video game or something. I'm just distracted by things I need to be doing around the house, and I've got a busy life, and it's hard for me to focus and be present. So my plan is to set these sort of time blocks where I go do something. And I did it actually yesterday with my daughter, one of my kids, when she was out of school for something. And I found it really difficult, really enjoyable, but actually difficult. I kept being like, oh, I want to check my phone. And I had purposely sort of put it across the house. So anyways, that's my goal.
I think it's a great one because it's a lot like exercising for people. So some people might be able to get off the couch and go run 10 miles, and some might only be able to go run 100 yards. And however you want to, whatever you need to do to get started and improved, that is the right goal for you. And so you're saying people might judge you for needing to give yourself a time limit to spend time with your kids, but they might be in a different situation. They might not have as many distractions as you have in your life. So I think that's a great goal.
And to be clear, I spend a lot of time with my kids. I want to spend more focused quality time doing what they want, not reminding them to clean their room and having to re-remind them every minute because they forgot what they were doing. Okay, my other goal is to read 11 books, which we already talked about. I just wanted to one-up Mike's 10 books. And I usually, like I said, read way more than 11 books a year. But with this new blog and podcast, I actually want to try to be more reasonable here. My other goal is I've gotten a little bit off my meditation practice this past year. It's super important to me. And I have a goal. Sorry, I forgot my number. My phone's over there, but what's 52 times 5? 260. I want to meditate 260 times next year. So my goal is basically 5 days a week. I'd like to do it 7 days a week is my intent. My goal for myself is 5 days a week. And I wanted to set my husband was like, are you going to count up to 260? And I was saying, it's more the point that if I mess up a week, I can make up for it in a following week. And I want to hold myself accountable to have to, fix my past week mistakes.
So you're going to be meditating 8 times a day in December?
Yeah, basically. I'm going to spend the last 2 weeks of December in total silence at a silent retreat to make up for the fact that I screwed up the rest of the year. So yeah, to meditate 260 times during 2020. And then my last goal is to write a blog post once a week for Mostly Minimal Life. That's
great.
Aggressive. We'll see if it happens.
I would like to help you with that.
Thanks.
I'll be your editor. You can send them over to me.
Yeah, thanks. Also, I'm turning 40 this year in 2020, so that's my other goal. Just to make it to my birthday.
Not die.
I think it'll be exciting to turn 40. So.
All right, so this episode's been a little bit long, so we're going to skip Mike's Minute on the Mic and go to our very first caller.
Okay.
All right, so let's play this right now.
Hey, Maggie. Hey, Mike. My name is Marlon. I live in Atlanta with my wife and 2 daughters, and I heard about Friends on Fire recently from a friend and colleague at work named Greg, who happens to be Maggie's husband. And when Greg was telling me about what you guys were doing, I just felt the need to call in and say that it really lit a spark and has inspired me to look at my own family's financial journey and in a different light because it had kind of gotten on autopilot for a while. So it has allowed me to have conversations with my wife about ways to think about our money differently, and I'm really excited about the path we're heading down. So again, just wanted to call and say thank you for what you're doing, for putting the podcast out there, and hopefully this helps spark some conversations with some other families out there because I'm really excited about what 2020 has in store for us. So congratulations on the launch and keep up the great work. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.
That message was actually from somebody that my husband is really good friends with and that we know. I love it because it shows the purpose of why we're doing this. And the reason we wanted to do this show in the first place, it shows the value of talking to your friends about money, and just the brief conversations they've had since they were even, since we were talking about this podcast, has made this guy and his wife have some really honest conversations and kind of change some of their goals as a result. And that's just the beginning. And so we actually want to try to have them on a future show and talk about this more, because I think they would really benefit from some of the things Mike and I have done together in terms of sharing our finances and like seeing like, what are you paying for this? Do you spend money on this? I spend a bunch of money in this area, and realizing, there's a different way. Like I was actually talking on the phone to him last night, and he was talking about how he just mentioned to his wife, like how much they're paying for internet, phone, and TV. And it was, I don't think he would mind me saying, but it was like $250 a month.
That's unbelievable.
I know. And there's some easy, quick ways they can fix that and save in that area. But if we hadn't been talking about money, it wouldn't even have been top of mind for them to think about it. And B, if you can't compare with other people what they're doing and some of the ideas they've come up with to save in that area, like we're paying less than $70 for all the things that he's paying $250 a month for.
It's kind of like what we talked about in an earlier episode, where being on this FIRE journey can be a little isolating, and you might be living in a bubble. And if you don't talk about it with people, you could go your entire life and not realize that there are better or different opportunities out there.
Yeah.
So it's really exciting. I appreciate him calling in, and look forward to a future episode where we can sit down and kind of talk through some of his numbers, give him some ideas, and help him and his wife along this journey.
Yeah, I'm excited. Okay, so let's close this episode up, and just some quick reminders. As always, we would love for you all to call us at 404-981-3370 and leave us a question, a comment, or a tip, and we will definitely play it on the air. You can also subscribe to this podcast wherever you're listening to podcasts.
Please, please, please.
Please.
Leave us a review on iTunes or wherever you listen to your podcasts. It will really help others find our podcasts when you leave your feedback. You can also find us at friendsonfire.org. That is .org.
.org.
If you want to check out the latest episodes, sign up for our email alerts or get in touch with us.
Awesome. Well, great episode.
And next up, we have our very first interview with the retired toddlers.
I know. We're super excited.
I can't wait.
I know. Okay.
All right.
Thanks, Mike.
Thanks, Maggie.
Bye.
Bye.